Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his office looking at the stars through the large window. The earth below looked peaceful as it always did from the United Terran Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. Jake had been running Earth space defense for 10 years now, and nothing much ever happened. Most alien species in the galaxy thought humans were too primitive to bother with. They had better energy weapons and faster ships, while humans still used old-fashioned explosives and bullets. The communication device on his desk started flashing red. Jake frowned because red meant emergency, and emergencies were rare. He pressed the button and a holographic image appeared in front of him. The creature that materialized looked like a tall blue insect with 4 arms and glowing eyes. Jake recognized it immediately as Ambassador Zethkler from the Centauri Alliance. "Admiral Morrison," the alien said in its mechanical voice, "I bring urgent news from the Galactic Federation Council. We need your help." Jake almost laughed. In 300 years since first contact, the Federation had never asked humans for anything except to stay out of their way. They thought human technology was crude and barbaric. "What kind of help?" Jake asked, trying to keep the surprise out of his voice. The alien's image flickered as the quantum communication struggled across the vast distance between Earth and the galactic core. "An ancient enemy has awakened," Zethkler continued. "The Void Hunters have returned from beyond the galactic rim. They consume everything in their path, and our weapons cannot stop them. Their ships adapt to our energy attacks, and our shields mean nothing to their weapons." Jake leaned forward in his chair. He had heard legends about the Void Hunters from other alien species, but thought they were just stories. According to the Thales, these creatures had destroyed civilizations millions of years ago before disappearing into deep space. "Why come to us?" Jake asked. "Our weapons are primitive compared to yours." The alien's eyes grew brighter, which Jake knew meant stress or fear. "That may be exactly what we need," Zethkler replied. "Our plasma cannons and photon torpedoes do no damage to their hulls. Their armor learns from each attack and becomes immune. But your kinetic weapons and explosive devices work on different principles. Perhaps what you call primitive is what we need to survive." Just then, Captain Lisa Grant walked into the office. She was Jake's chief tactical officer and one of the smartest military minds on Earth. She had been listening to the conversation from the outer office, and her eyes were wide with excitement. "Admiral," Lisa said quietly, "this could be the chance we've been waiting for. If their energy weapons don't work, our railguns and missiles might be exactly what's needed." Jake held up his hand to silence her and turned back to the alien ambassador. "Send us all the data you have on these Void Hunters. Ship designs, weapons capabilities, battle recordings, everything. We'll study it and give you an answer." "Time is running short," Zethkler warned. "They have already consumed 12 star systems and are moving toward the core worlds. Each day we delay means billions more lives lost." The transmission ended and Jake sat back in his chair. Lisa moved closer to his desk, her mind already working on the tactical possibilities. "Sir, this is incredible," she said. "For centuries, we've been the outcasts of galactic society because we still use bullets and bombs. Every other species moved to pure energy weapons eons ago. They think we're savages because we blow things up instead of using elegant beam weapons." Jake nodded slowly. He remembered the condescending looks from alien diplomats when they visited Earth. They acted like humans were children playing with dangerous toys. Their energy shields could stop any projectile moving slower than light speed, or so they claimed. "Get Dr. Carl Weber up here immediately," Jake ordered. Carl was the head of Earth's Weapons Research Division and knew more about human military technology than anyone alive. "If we're going to help, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Within an hour, Dr. Weber arrived with a team of analysts. They spread holographic displays across the conference room, showing technical readouts of Federation weapons and the limited data on Void Hunter ships. Carl studied the information with the intensity of a man solving the universe's greatest puzzle. "This is fascinating," Carl said after reviewing the data. "Look at these energy absorption readings. The Hunter ships literally eat energy attacks and use them to repair damage. No wonder the Federation can't hurt them. Lisa pointed to one of the displays, but look at this battle recording. When a Federation ship exploded, the debris actually damaged a hunter vessel. Physical impact caused real harm. Carl smiled for the first time since arriving. Gentlemen and ladies, I think the galaxy is about to learn why humans never gave up on good old-fashioned firepower. These creatures have never faced tungsten rounds moving at significant fractions of light speed. They've never experienced the joy of a nuclear warhead detonating inside their hull. Jake stood up and walked to the window again. The stars that had seemed so peaceful an hour ago now represented a galaxy crying for help. Earth had always been dismissed as a backwater world full of primitive warriors. Now those same warriors might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Jake ordered. Full mobilization begins immediately. It's time to show the galaxy what human weapons can really do. The mobilization order went out across Earth within minutes of Jake's decision. General Pete Davis stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as status boards lit up green across the globe. Every military base, every orbital station, every hidden weapons facility was coming online. Earth had been preparing for war for centuries, even if they never expected to fight aliens instead of each other. Sullivan floated in the command center of Orbital Shipyard 7, watching as massive construction mechs began retrofitting warships with enhanced weapon systems. The TNS Liberty, Earth's largest battleship, hung in the central dock like a sleeping giant waiting to wake up. Teams of engineers crawled across its hull, installing new magnetic accelerator cannons that could launch tungsten projectiles at incredible speeds. How long until the Liberty is ready? Kate asked Commander Ryan Brooks, the chief engineer overseeing the retrofit. Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked his tablet. The past 12 hours had been a blur of technical modifications and weapons installations. 48 hours for basic systems, Admiral, Ryan replied. But if we're really going to hurt these void hunters, I recommend another week for the experimental kinetic bombardment array. Those magnetic accelerators could punch holes through a moon if we get them calibrated right. Down on Earth's surface, Colonel Beth Adams supervised the loading of nuclear arsenals that had been stockpiled for over 2 centuries. The underground facility in Nevada contained enough atomic weapons to glass a dozen worlds, all of it gathering dust while the Federation preached about the elegance of clean energy warfare. Now those same weapons might save galactic civilization. Load everything, Beth ordered her teams. If we're going to make an impression, let's make sure the galaxy remembers it. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, transferring warheads to transport shuttles bound for the fleet assembly points. Dr. Helen Ross worked frantically in her laboratory, studying the biological samples that the Federation had provided. The void hunter tissue looked almost alive under her microscope, with metallic veins running through organic matter. She had been Earth's leading xenobiologist for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Look at this cellular structure, Helen called to her assistant. It's part machine, part living tissue. The metal components seem to absorb energy and distribute it throughout the organism. That's why energy weapons just make them stronger. The tissue sample pulsed under the microscope, responding to the lab's electrical systems. Helen carefully applied different forms of stress to see how it reacted. Heat made it stronger, radiation made it adapt. Energy made it grow, but when she subjected it to pure kinetic force with a simple hammer, the tissue tore apart like wet paper. Physical trauma, Helen whispered to herself. They can adapt to energy, but not to being smashed into pieces? She immediately sent her findings to every ship captain in the fleet. Captain Scott Miller stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the TNS Hammer, as it prepared to lead the advanced reconnaissance fleet. His ships had been chosen for speed and firepower, rather than size. Their mission was to reach the battle zone first and test human weapons against real void hunter vessels. Status report, Scott called to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Commander Dan Price looked up from his console with a grin that made him look younger than his 30 years. All missile tubes loaded with conventional warheads, Captain, Don reported. We've got armor-piercing rounds, high explosive, shells, and some experimental depleted uranium penetrators. If kinetic force is what hurts these things, we're ready to deliver. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person focused on their role in humanity's first real galactic war. The aliens had always dismissed human military doctrine as crude and wasteful. They preferred precise energy beams that could disable without destroying. Humans had never seen the point in being gentle with enemies. Dr. Carl Weber stood in the weapons lab aboard the Liberty, surrounded by devices that would have horrified Federation scientists. Thermobaric bombs designed to consume oxygen and create massive pressure waves. Neutron radiation emitters that could cook organic tissue while leaving machinery intact. Magnetic pulse weapons that could disrupt any electronic system. The beauty of human weapons, Carl explained to his team, is that we never stop thinking about how to break things. Every other species in the galaxy evolved past physical violence. We refined it into an art form. The weapons lab hummed with activity as technicians assembled devices that combined explosive force with radiation, kinetic energy with chemical reactions. Each weapon was designed to exploit the weaknesses that Helen had discovered in Void Hunter. Biology, meanwhile, fleet commanders across the solar system received their orders. Admiral Morrison had divided Earth's forces into 3 groups. The first would hit the enemy hard and fast to test their weapons. The second would provide support and reinforcement. The third would stay in Sol System to defend Earth if everything went wrong. Captain Lisa Grant worked around the clock in the Tactical Planning Center, studying every piece of data the Federation had provided about Void Hunter movements. Their ships moved in predictable patterns, always closing to short range before attacking. They had never faced an enemy that could hurt them from a distance. "They're used to prey that runs away," Lisa explained to her planning staff. "Every species they've encountered either fled or died quickly. They don't know how to fight an enemy that stands its ground and shoots back with real weapons." The psychological profiles were equally important. The Void Hunters showed pack-hunting behavior, surrounding and overwhelming their targets through numbers. But they had never faced coordinated resistance from multiple directions. Human military doctrine emphasized exactly that kind of complex. Battlefield coordination. General Davis coordinated with ground forces across a dozen Federation worlds that were already under attack. Colonel Adams had volunteered to lead Marine units equipped with weapons that made alien observers flinch. Flamethrowers, chemical explosives, and projectile weapons that could tear through any known armor. "The Federation Marines are trained for peacekeeping," Pete explained to his staff. "Our Marines are trained to kill things efficiently and brutally. There's a difference." As the final preparations continued, news arrived that made everyone's blood run cold. The Void Hunters had consumed another star system, this time one with over 8 billion inhabitants. The Federation fleet had tried to stop them and been destroyed completely. Only a few ships escaped to carry word of the massacre. Admiral Morrison stood on the Liberty's bridge as Earth's fleet assembled in formation. 300 ships of various sizes, all equipped with weapons that the galaxy had dismissed as primitive. Nuclear missiles, kinetic cannons, chemical explosives, and radiation weapons. Everything that civilized species had abandoned in favor of clean energy warfare. "Signal the fleet," Jake ordered. "We jump to hyperspace in 6 hours. Time to show the galaxy what human firepower can accomplish." The message went out across all channels, reaching every ship and every crew member. After centuries of being treated as galactic barbarians, humanity was finally going to war with enemies that understood only force. The Void Hunters had awakened, expecting to find the same helpless prey they had always consumed. Instead, they were about to meet a species that had never stopped perfecting the art of creative destruction. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system to find chaos waiting for them. Admiral Morrison stood on the Liberty's bridge, watching through the main view screen as elegant Federation ships fled in panic from something that looked like living nightmares. The Void Hunter vessels moved through space like predatory fish, their hulls rippling with dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself. "My God," Captain Grant whispered beside him. She had seen the technical readouts, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. The hunter ships were massive, easily twice the size of human battleships, and they moved with an organic grace that made them seem alive. Which, according to Dr. Ross's research, they probably were. Signal from the Federation flagship, the communications officer reported. Admiral Kethver is requesting immediate assistance. His fleet has lost 60% of its ships in the last 4 hours. Jake studied the tactical display showing the enemy formations. The Void Hunters moved in pack patterns, surrounding individual Federation ships before closing to what humans would consider knife-fighting range. Their weapons seemed to drain energy directly from their targets before consuming the disabled. Vessels entirely, range to nearest enemy contacts? Jake asked his weapons officer. Lieutenant Commander Don Price checked his instruments twice before answering. 40,000 kilometers and closing, sir. They're moving toward us at standard approach speed. Estimate contact in 12 minutes? Jake smiled grimly. 40,000 kilometers was point-blank range for human weapons, but impossibly distant for most galactic species. The Federation had developed energy weapons that required close proximity for maximum effect. Humans had missiles that could hit targets from the other side of a solar system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced on the fleet. Communication channel. We are weapons free. Engage at maximum range with conventional ordnance. Let's see how these things handle good old-fashioned explosives. Captain Scott Miller on the destroyer TNS Hammer was the first to open fire. His missile tubes launched a spread of conventional warheads that streaked toward the nearest hunter vessel at significant fractions of light speed. The Federation observers watched in amazement as human weapons crossed distances that would have been impossible for their own systems. The missiles struck the hunter ship with devastating effect. Explosions bloomed across its hull like deadly flowers, tearing chunks of organic metal away from the main structure. For the first time in this war, a Void Hunter vessel actually took damage instead of simply absorbing the attack energy. Direct hits, Don reported with barely contained excitement. Enemy vessel showing structural damage and atmosphere venting. Their adaptive armor isn't compensating for kinetic impact. The hunter ship's reaction was immediate and terrifying. Instead of the calculated response that Federation forces expected, the creature began thrashing like a wounded animal. Its hull rippled with what could only be described as pain signals, and the entire hunter pack formation shifted to focus on the human fleet. They're angry, Dr. Ross reported from her monitoring station. Biological stress indicators are off the charts. These creatures have never experienced real pain before. The hunter vessels accelerated toward the human formation with predatory intensity. Their usual graceful approach patterns dissolved into pure aggression as they sought to eliminate the source of actual harm. But they were still closing distance. According to their ancient instincts, expecting the humans to either flee or die quickly, Commander. Ryan Brooks had been waiting for this moment since the retrofit began. The Liberty's new magnetic accelerator cannons had never been tested in real combat, but the theory was simple. Launch a tungsten projectile at 20% of light speed and let physics handle the rest. Kinetic batteries ready, Admiral. Ryan reported, targeting the largest hunter vessel. 1 round loaded and ready to fire. Fire, Jake ordered simply. The magnetic accelerator cannon discharged with a sound that resonated through the Liberty's hull like thunder. The tungsten projectile, no larger than a beer bottle, crossed 40,000 kilometers in less than a second. When it struck the hunter ship, the result was spectacular. The round punched completely through the enemy vessel from bow to stern, creating a perfectly circular hole that vented atmosphere, organic fluids, and what might have been screaming creatures into space. The hunter ship's adaptive armor had no response to pure kinetic energy delivered faster than its biological systems could process. Clean kill, Lisa reported with professional satisfaction. Target is dead in space and breaking apart. The psychological effect on both sides was immediate. The Federation ships that had been fleeing in panic suddenly stopped their retreat, watching in wonder as human weapons accomplished what they had thought impossible. The remaining hunter vessels showed signs of confusion, their formation patterns wavering as they tried to understand how prey had suddenly become predator, but the hunters adapted quickly. The surviving vessels spread out and began evasive maneuvers, trying to close distance while avoiding the devastating human fire. Their organic hulls pulsed with new configurations as they attempted to develop defenses against kinetic weapons. "They're learning," Helen warned from her station. "I'm seeing adaptive changes in their hull composition. They're trying to develop kinetic absorption capabilities." Jake nodded grimly. Intelligence reports had warned that the hunters could adapt to any attack given enough time and examples. The key was to hit them hard and fast with different types of weapons before they could compensate. "All ships rotate weapon types," Jake ordered. "Don't give them time to adapt to any single system. Missiles, kinetic rounds, and prepare nuclear warheads for close engagement." The battle escalated as more hunter vessels arrived to investigate the disturbance. Captain Miller's destroyer squadron found themselves surrounded by enemies trying to get close enough to use their energy drain weapons. The humans responded with a continuous barrage of different ordnance types, keeping the hunters off balance. "Nuclear warhead away," reported the weapons officer on the TNS Defiance. The atomic weapon detonated directly against a hunter hull, creating a miniature sun that consumed organic armor and cybernetic components alike. The explosion left nothing but radioactive debris drifting in space. The hunter pack finally realized they were facing something completely outside their experience. These new enemies didn't run. They didn't die quickly. And their weapons caused real, permanent damage that couldn't be adapted to or absorbed. For the first time in millions of years, the Void Hunters were experiencing genuine fear. "Sir," the sensor officer called out urgently, "massive hunter reinforcements incoming. I count over 200 contacts dropping out of hyperspace." Jake looked at the tactical display showing red contacts appearing throughout the system. The local hunter pack had called for help, and the response was overwhelming. But instead of concern, he felt a savage satisfaction. More targets meant more opportunities to test human weapons. "Signal the Federation ships," Jake ordered. "Tell them to fall back to minimum safe distance and observe. It's time for Earth to make a statement." The Liberty's crew worked with deadly efficiency as they prepared for the largest space battle in human history. Around them, the rest of the human fleet formed defensive positions and loaded their most devastating weapons. Nuclear warheads, kinetic penetrators, chemical explosives, and radiation bombs. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Lisa announced. "We have enough firepower to crack a planet." Jake smiled as he watched the hunter reinforcements approach. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as primitive savages who didn't understand proper warfare. Now they were about to learn that sometimes the oldest, simplest, and most brutal solutions were exactly what the universe required. "Open fire," Jake commanded. "Show them what human firepower really means." News of humanity's victory at Kepler spread through galactic communication networks faster than hyperspace travel. Federation worlds that had been preparing for evacuation suddenly found hope in the most unlikely source. The same species they had dismissed as barbaric primitives had accomplished what their advanced fleets could not manage. Dead Void Hunters were floating in space, and for the first time since the invasion began, the galaxy had reason for optimism. Admiral Morrison found himself coordinating with alien commanders who had previously refused to acknowledge his existence. The holographic conference room aboard the Liberty filled with representatives from dozens of species, all seeking human military assistance. The irony was not lost on Jake that Earth's supposed primitiveness had become their greatest asset. "Admiral Morrison," said Commander Veltar of the Rigel Defense Fleet, his crystalline features reflecting shame and desperation. "My government formally requests human tactical advisors. Our energy weapons continue to prove useless against hunter adaptive armor. Similar requests came from across the galaxy. The Centauri Alliance wanted human weapons specialists. The Vegan Confederation needed advice on kinetic warfare. Even the proud Andromedan Empire, who had once called humans barbaric warmongers, now begged for military consultation. Colonel Beth Adams stood in the cargo bay of a Federation transport ship, watching her Marines prepare for their first ground operation. The planet below was Zarian Prime, a major Federation world that had been partially consumed by Hunter ground forces. The aliens called them infiltration units, but Beth's intel team had a simpler term: bugs that needed killing. "Listen up, Beth," addressed her Marines as they checked their equipment. "The Federation ground forces are trained for peacekeeping and riot control. We're going down there with flamethrowers, explosive charges, and good old-fashioned bullets. The locals might be shocked by our methods, but dead bugs don't adapt." Her Marines carried weapons that made their alien allies uncomfortable. Chemical, explosives, depleted uranium ammunition, white phosphorus grenades, and flamethrowers that could turn organic matter into ash. The Federation had banned such weapons centuries ago as unnecessarily cruel. Now that cruelty was exactly what the situation required. The first transport touched down in a city that looked like something from a nightmare. Hunter ground forces had converted entire blocks into organic structures that pulsed with alien life. Federation Marines huddled behind energy barriers, their weapons ineffective against enemies that absorbed their attacks and grew stronger. "First squad, advance with flame units," Beth ordered over the radio. "Burn everything that moves and most things that don't." Her Marines moved forward with the confidence of soldiers who knew their weapons worked. Flamethrowers roared to life, sending streams of chemical fire into the organic structures. The Hunter infiltrators had never experienced anything like human warfare. They tried to adapt to the flame attacks but discovered that being burned alive didn't leave much time for evolutionary changes. Their screams filled the air as entire nests dissolved into ash and melted metal. Captain Scott Miller's reconnaissance fleet had discovered something that changed the entire strategic picture. Beyond the main battle zone, hidden in a nebula cluster, the Hunters had constructed a massive staging area. The structure defied easy description: part space station and part living organism, spanning thousands of kilometers and birthing new Hunter vessels from organic foundries. "It's their main base," Scott reported to Admiral Morrison during the daily strategy briefing. "Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Amy Clark has identified critical weak points where concentrated firepower could cause cascading structural failures. But we'll need the entire fleet to make a dent in something that size." The discovery explained how the Hunters could replace their losses so quickly. Every ship the Federation destroyed was replaced by 3 more from the biological foundries. But the structure size also represented an opportunity. Human weapons were designed for destroying large, fixed targets. Dr. Carl Weber had been working around the clock, developing new weapons based on captured Hunter technology. His latest creation combined kinetic force with chemical reactions that interfered with the Hunters' self-repair mechanisms. Each battle taught his team more about exploiting the enemy's biological weaknesses. "Look at this," Carl explained to his research team as he demonstrated the new ammunition. "The round penetrates normally, but then releases a chemical payload that prevents cellular regeneration. The Hunters can't heal from wounds inflicted by these weapons." The strategic situation continued to shift as human tactics spread throughout the Federation fleet. Alien species began retrofitting their ships with primitive kinetic weapons, though none achieved humanity's level of effectiveness. The Centaurians mounted simple railguns on their cruisers. The Vegans installed missile launchers on their carriers. Even the energy-obsessed Andromedans began experimenting with projectile weapons, but the Federation's attempts to copy human weapons met with limited success. Their technology was too advanced, too refined for the crude effectiveness that made human weapons so deadly. They couldn't bring themselves to build simple systems that just destroyed things without elegance or efficiency. Admiral Kate Sullivan coordinated the massive logistics operation required to keep human forces supplied across multiple star systems. Federation technology proved useful for one thing: power generation and supply transport. Their clean energy systems could charge human weapons, and their fast ships could carry ammunition where it was needed. "It's ironic," Kate explained to her staff officers. Their technology is perfect for supporting our technology. They provide the infrastructure, we provide the firepower. Maybe this partnership was always meant to happen. The partnership deepened as human commanders took leadership roles in combined operations. Federation species discovered that human military doctrine emphasized adaptability and initiative in ways their rigid command structures had never allowed. Human officers encouraged creative thinking and battlefield improvisation. That revolutionized alien tactics. Captain Lisa Grant found herself commanding a mixed fleet of human destroyers and Federation cruisers, pursuing hunter raiding parties across 3 star systems. The alien crews watched in amazement as human tactical doctrine turned every engagement into a learning experience that improved their effectiveness. The key, Lisa explained to her alien officers, is not to fight the same battle twice. Every engagement teaches us something new about the enemy. We adapt our weapons, our tactics, our entire approach based on what we learn. Dr. Helen Ross had established research stations on liberated Federation worlds, studying hunter remains and developing new ways to exploit their biological weaknesses. Her discoveries were transmitted instantly to every human ship and weapons laboratory, creating a feedback loop of continuous improvement. We're learning their biology faster than they can adapt to our weapons, Helen reported during a scientific briefing. Each new weapon system we deploy forces them to evolve new defenses, but evolution takes time. We can stay ahead of their adaptation cycle by constantly changing our approach. The psychological impact extended beyond military effectiveness. Federation citizens who had lived in terror of the unstoppable hunters now saw them as just another enemy that could be defeated with proper weapons and tactics. Human confidence was infectious, spreading through refugee populations and military units alike on Federation worlds. Children who had never seen violence watched human Marines clear hunter infestations with brutal efficiency. The sight of enemies that had seemed invincible being burned out of their nests changed everything. The galaxy was learning that some problems required violent solutions delivered by experts in violence. Admiral Morrison reviewed the latest intelligence reports, showing hunter formations withdrawing from several star systems. It was the first strategic retreat the creatures had made since awakening from their ancient slumber. The predators were learning to fear their prey. Signal all fleet commanders, Jake ordered. Begin Phase 2 operations. It's time to take the fight to their main base and show them what concentrated human firepower can accomplish. The orders went out across the galactic communication network, reaching human forces scattered across dozens of worlds. The galaxy's saviors were about to deliver the decisive blow that would end the hunter threat forever. Earth's children were coming home from their first galactic war, and they were bringing victory with them. Admiral Morrison stood before the largest human fleet ever assembled, 500 ships from every class in Earth's arsenal. The Liberty served as flagship for an armada that included everything from massive battleships to nimble destroyers, all loaded with the most destructive weapons humanity could produce. Around them, Federation vessels equipped with human-designed kinetic weapons formed supporting formations, their crews still learning the brutal art of effective warfare. The target loomed ahead like a cancer growing in space itself. The Hunter megastructure sprawled across thousands of kilometers, a living nightmare of organic metal and pulsing biological components. Tentacle-like extensions reached out toward nearby asteroids, consuming matter and converting it into new hunter vessels that emerged from birth canals like deadly spawn. Sensor readings confirmed the intelligence reports, Captain Grant announced from her station. The structure contains approximately 15,000 hunter vessels in various stages of construction. If we don't destroy this facility, they'll replace their entire fleet within 6 months. The approach had taken weeks of careful planning and preparation. Human engineers had worked with Federation scientists to develop specialized weapons designed specifically for this target. Nuclear devices enhanced with chemical payloads that would prevent biological regeneration. Kinetic penetrators loaded with radioactive materials that would poison organic components. Conventional explosives modified with Federation technology. For maximum destructive effect. Commander Ryan Brooks monitored the experimental weapon systems that had been installed throughout the fleet. The magnetic accelerator cannons now fired projectiles enhanced with anti-biological agents. The missile launchers carried warheads that combined human explosives with Federation energy containment technology. Every weapon had been modified for maximum effectiveness against living targets. Weapons status report, Admiral Morrison requested as the fleet moved into attack formation. The response came from ship after ship, each captain confirming their readiness for the largest space battle in galactic history. TNS Hammer reports all kinetic batteries loaded and ready, came Captain Miller's voice. TNS Defiance confirms nuclear arsenal at full capacity, followed another captain. Ship by ship, the reports confirmed that Earth's children were ready. To end the Hunter threat permanently, the megastructure began responding to their approach, birthing defender vessels from organic foundries deep within its structure. Hunter ships emerged like antibodies from a diseased organism, their hulls already showing adaptations to kinetic weapons. The creatures had learned from previous battles, developing thicker armor and energy absorption capabilities designed to counter human firepower. Enemy contacts numbering in the thousands, reported the sensor officer. They're forming defensive perimeters around the main structure. Estimate over 3,000 combat-capable vessels with more launching every minute. Dr. Helen Ross studied the biological readings from her monitoring station aboard the Liberty. The megastructure was more than just a factory. It was a single, massive organism with intelligence beyond anything they had encountered. The individual Hunter ships were just extensions of a central consciousness that had been learning human tactics and developing countermeasures. It's adapting to us, Helen warned Admiral Morrison. The structure is analyzing our previous battles and preparing specific defenses. Those new ships will be harder to kill than anything we've faced before. The first waves of Hunter defenders reached the human formation, and the battle began with an exchange of fire that lit up space like a new star. Human weapons struck with devastating effect, but the enemy vessels absorbed more damage before dying. Their adaptive armor had indeed improved, though it still couldn't completely counter kinetic attacks. "They're tougher," reported Captain Grant as she coordinated the fleet's response, "but they still die when we hit them hard enough. Increase firepower by 50% and concentrate fire on individual targets." The battle escalated as both sides committed more forces. Hunter vessels tried to close distance for their energy drain attacks while human ships maintained long-range fire with increasingly powerful weapons. Nuclear explosions bloomed throughout the formation as both sides took casualties in the largest space engagement in galactic history. Commander Brooks led the first penetration attempt, taking a squadron of destroyers directly at the megastructures. Outer defenses. Their mission was to clear a path for the heavy bombardment ships that carried the most destructive weapons in Earth's arsenal. The destroyers dove through Hunter formations like fighters, their point defense systems destroying smaller enemy vessels while their main guns targeted the structure itself. "Penetration successful," Brooks reported as his ships broke through the defensive perimeter, beginning bombardment of primary target areas. All ships commence firing on structural weak points identified by intelligence. The assault on the megastructure began with a barrage that would have cracked a planet. Kinetic penetrators moving at significant fractions of light speed punched deep into the organic hull, followed by nuclear warheads that detonated inside the structure itself. The explosions created chain reactions that spread through biological corridors, burning out entire sections of the living facility. But the megastructure fought back with weapons that defied description. Tentacle-like extensions reached out to grab human ships, trying to drain their power and convert them into Hunter vessels. The biological cannons fired streams of organic acid that could dissolve metal hulls. Energy weapons more powerful than anything? The Federation possessed lashed out at the attacking fleet. "Heavy casualties in the assault squadrons," reported Captain Grant as damage reports flooded in. but were causing significant structural damage. The target is showing signs of systemic failure in multiple sections. Colonel Beth Adams led the most dangerous part of the operation, taking Marine assault teams directly into the megastructure's interior. Their mission was to locate and destroy the central consciousness that controlled the entire Hunter fleet. The organic corridors they fought through pulsed with alien life, defended by creatures that existed only to kill intruders. "Flamethrower teams advance," Beth ordered as her Marines encountered resistance in the living tunnels. "Burn everything that moves and keep moving toward the core. We don't have time for careful tactics." The Marines advanced through nightmarish passages that tried to heal themselves faster than human weapons could destroy them. Chemical explosives tore holes in organic walls while flamethrowers sterilized entire sections. The structure screamed through vibrations that could be felt through their armor as essential systems were destroyed by human brutality. Deep in the megastructure's core, the Marines found something that challenged human understanding. The central consciousness was a massive brain-like organ, pulsing with malevolent intelligence and connected to every Hunter vessel in the galaxy through biological communication networks. It was ancient beyond measure and completely alien to human comprehension. "Target acquired," Beth reported to the fleet, requesting immediate bombardment of core location. "We'll try to damage it from the inside while you hit it from outside." The final assault combined every weapon in the human arsenal. Nuclear warheads, kinetic penetrators, chemical explosives, and radiation bombs struck the core simultaneously, while Beth's Marines detonated high explosives directly against the central brain. The combined attack created a chain reaction that spread throughout the entire megastructure. The death of the central consciousness sent shock waves through every Hunter vessel in the galaxy. Ships that had been fighting effectively suddenly lost coordination and began operating on pure instinct. The organized intelligence that had made them so dangerous dissolved into chaos as biological communication networks collapsed. "Enemy forces throughout the galaxy are showing signs of disorganization," reported the communications officer. "Federation fleets are reporting that Hunter ships are fleeing or shutting down completely." Admiral Morrison watched through the view screen as the megastructure began collapsing in on itself. Explosions cascaded through organic corridors as biological systems failed and chemical reactions consumed the living metal. The factory that had produced thousands of Hunter vessels was dying, taking with it the species' ability to replace their losses. "Signal all fleet units," Jake ordered. "Begin recovery operations for our people and prepare damage assessment reports. But first, send a message to Earth and every Federation world. The Hunter threat is ended." The message went out across the galactic communication network, carrying news that would change the course of galactic civilization. Humanity had not just defeated an ancient enemy. They had proven that their supposedly primitive approach to warfare was superior to the galaxy's advanced technology when facing certain types of threats. As the human fleet regrouped around the dying megastructure, Admiral Morrison reflected on what they had accomplished. Earth's children had traveled to the far reaches of space and saved a galaxy that had never wanted their help. Now that same galaxy would have to acknowledge that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective, and sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected sources. 6 months after the destruction of the Hunter megastructure, Admiral Morrison stood in the rebuilt Federation Council chambers on Earth, looking out at representatives from every civilized species in the galaxy. The irony was not lost on him that the same building where aliens had once lectured humans about their primitive nature now served as headquarters for the new Galactic Defense Command. With Earth as its center of operations, the transformation had been remarkable and swift. Federation worlds that had been preparing for extinction were now rebuilding their civilizations with human assistance. Earth's industrial capacity, designed for efficiency and redundancy rather than elegance, had proven perfectly suited for large-scale reconstruction efforts. Human engineering teams worked alongside alien specialists, rebuilding devastated worlds with a combination of Federation technology and human practical solutions. Captain Lisa Grant, now Admiral Grant, commanded the new Galactic Defense Fleet from her flagship, the TNS Victory. The vessel represented the evolution of galactic military thinking, combining Federation energy systems with human kinetic weapons in a design that prioritized effectiveness over beauty. The fleet under her command included ships from every species, all equipped with human-designed weapons and trained in human tactical doctrine. Status report from the Outer Rim sectors, Lisa announced during the daily briefing. All Hunter remnants have been eliminated or contained. The galaxy is officially secure for the first time in 6 months. The cleanup operation had been thorough and systematic. Small Hunter groups that had survived the loss of their central consciousness were hunted down by combined human and Federation forces. The creatures, operating on pure instinct without their guiding intelligence, proved vulnerable to coordinated attacks that exploited their predictable behavior patterns. Dr. Helen Ross had established research centers on 12 Federation worlds, studying Hunter remains and developing new biological defense systems. Her work had revolutionized galactic understanding of xenobiology and created early warning systems that could detect similar threats long before they became dangerous. The Hunter biology was incredibly sophisticated, Helen explained to her research teams, but it had one critical weakness: complete dependence on central coordination. When we destroyed their command structure, we didn't just win a battle, we eliminated their ability to function as a species. Political changes had followed military ones throughout the galaxy. The old Federation hierarchy, based on technological advancement and energy mastery, had given way to a new order that valued practical effectiveness above theoretical sophistication. Human representatives now held leadership positions across galactic institutions, their pragmatic approach replacing centuries of bureaucratic stagnation. General Pete Davis coordinated the new Galactic Defense Academy on Mars, where officers from every species learned combined arms tactics and human military doctrine. The curriculum included both advanced Federation technology and basic human warfare principles, creating a new generation of military leaders who understood that elegance and effectiveness were not always the same thing. The key lesson, Pete explained to his first class of mixed-species cadets, is that the best weapon is the one that works. Energy beams are elegant, but sometimes you need a good old-fashioned explosion to get the job done. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. Human manufacturing techniques, emphasizing quantity and reliability over refinement, had revolutionized galactic industry. Federation worlds discovered that sometimes producing 10,000 simple devices was more useful than creating one perfect machine that required years to build. Colonel Beth Adams, now General Adams, supervised training programs that taught Federation ground forces the brutal effectiveness of human infantry tactics. The aliens struggled with concepts like overwhelming firepower and acceptable casualties, but they learned quickly when shown the results of proper military doctrine. War is not a gentleman's game, Beth explained to her mixed-species officer. Corps? The Hunters taught us that some enemies can only be stopped with superior firepower applied without mercy. The galaxy needs soldiers who understand that distinction. Captain Scott Miller had been promoted to admiral and placed in charge of deep space reconnaissance, leading fleets that explored beyond the galactic rim for signs of other ancient threats. His ships carried the most advanced sensor systems the Federation could provide, combined with enough human firepower to handle anything they might encounter. We found evidence of at least 3 other dormant species out there, Scott reported during a classified briefing. None showing signs of current activity, but we're maintaining monitoring stations just in case. The galaxy won't be caught off guard again. Dr. Carl Weber's weapons research had evolved beyond simple destructive devices into sophisticated systems that combined human kinetic principles with Federation energy technology. His latest designs were being manufactured in orbital facilities around Earth, creating an arsenal that could handle any conceivable threat. The beautiful thing about human weapons, Carl explained to his expanded research team, Is that they're based on physics rather than technology? Energy weapons can be countered by better energy shields, but momentum is momentum regardless of how advanced your civilization becomes. The cultural changes were perhaps the most significant. Human entertainment, literature, and art had spread throughout Federation space, introducing alien populations to concepts they had never encountered. The idea that conflict could lead to growth, that struggle could create strength, was revolutionary to species that had eliminated competition from their societies. Children on Federation worlds learned about human history alongside their own, studying the wars and conflicts that had shaped Earth's development. The aliens were fascinated by humanity's ability to turn destructive impulses into creative forces, transforming warfare into exploration and competition into cooperation. Commander Ryan Brooks had been placed in charge of the new interspecies technology integration project, working to combine the best aspects of human and alien engineering. His teams created hybrid systems that matched Federation sophistication with human durability, producing technology that was both advanced and practical. The Federation taught us about energy manipulation and faster than light travel, Ryan explained to his engineering staff. We taught them about redundancy, simplicity, and building things that work under stress. Together, we're creating technology that's actually useful instead of just impressive. The memorial services for human casualties had been attended by representatives from every Federation world, creating a shared recognition of sacrifice that transcended species boundaries. Earth's military cemeteries now included monuments to aliens who had died fighting alongside human forces, while Federation worlds erected statues, honoring human Marines who had given their lives for galactic freedom. Admiral Morrison walked through the new Galactic Defense Command Center, watching as human and alien officers worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible before the war. The crisis had forced different species to learn from each other, creating understanding that diplomatic contact had never achieved. Final casualty report, sir. Captain Grant handed him a datapad with the war's complete statistics. Human losses had been significant but acceptable given the scale of the conflict. More importantly, every Federation species had contributed to the victory, creating shared ownership of the outcome. The economic benefits were flowing both ways. Federation energy technology had revolutionized Earth's industry while human manufacturing techniques had increased alien production capacity by orders of magnitude. Trade agreements that had taken decades to negotiate before the war were now signed in weeks, as mutual trust replaced suspicious diplomacy. Ambassador Zethkler, the alien, who had first requested human assistance, now served as Federation liaison to Earth's government. His species had been among the most condescending toward human primitiveness, making his current role deeply symbolic of the galaxy's changed attitudes. Your species saved us all, the ambassador admitted during a private meeting with Admiral Morrison, not because you were more advanced than us, but because you never stopped being what we had tried to evolve beyond. The galaxy needed warriors, and only humanity remembered how to fight. The final scene took place in a school on New Geneva, a Federation colony world that had been rebuilt with human assistance. Children from 6 different species sat together in a classroom, learning about physics, history, and military tactics from teachers who represented the new galactic order. Can anyone tell me why kinetic weapons proved more effective than energy beams against the hunters? Asked the human instructor, a former Marine who had fought in the final battle. A young Centaurian raised her crystalline hand. Because momentum cannot be absorbed or redirected like energy can. Physical force always wins against adaptation given sufficient application. The instructor smiled. The galaxy's children were learning lessons that would prevent future catastrophes. They understood that sophistication was not always superior to simplicity, that elegance meant nothing if it didn't work when needed, and that sometimes the best answer to an impossible problem was overwhelming firepower applied without hesitation.